Welcome everyone to the Dr. Abs Healthcast. I'm your host, Dr. Bryan Abasolo, aka Dr. Abs, and my guest today is none other than Jason Tartick. Jason is a speaker, investor, and the founder of Restart, a consulting company, vlog, and blog centered around informational and inspirational niche life hacks. Many of you may recognize Jason as a former suitor on ABC's The Bachelorette who just fell short of the final rose, but still ended up finding what he was looking for all along. He currently resides in Nashville, Tennessee with former Bachelorette Kaitlyn Bristowe and their rescued golden retrievers Ramen Noodle and Pino. Prior to a stint on reality TV, Jason was a corporate banker. He earned his bachelor's degree in business administration and an MBA in accounting and finance. As a corporate banker, he executed over $100 million of lending to the companies he worked with, which all earned over $20 million in revenue. Jason's business endeavors, coupled with his charismatic personality, has landed him co-hosting opportunities on shows such as Live from E Daily Pop, The Bachelor, and Yahoo Finance. I'm excited to get this interview started, so let's meet Jason. What's up, Jason? Welcome to the Healthcast, buddy. How you doing?
Brian, I'm doing well. Thank you so much for having me. Kaitlyn and I are quarantined up and social distancing here in Nashville, but everything is going as well as it possibly could be given the circumstances.
I hear you, man. Rachel and I are hanging in there as well. We're just trying to do our part, but I'm happy to hear that you and Kaitlyn are safe and healthy with the dogs, and hopefully we can all come out better on the other side of this.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if while you're social distancing, it's such a good time to get things done that you haven't done. So if you can find some type of positive in this whole entire experience, there's things we can come out ahead,
Absolutely, man. So I brought you on, man, just because I love everything that you're doing on your platform. I feel like a lot of people go to you now for financial advice. So obviously with everything going on, everybody's dealing with the coronavirus now. And, obviously a lot of people are scared about their health, but I feel like a good majority of the people are also scared about their financial health. So I just wanted to ask you, what do you feel is like the most important thing that people could do right now to survive this financial crisis?
Yeah, it's such a good question. So I think if I look back at my career, 10 years in corporate banking, and I have an MBA in accounting and finance. And one of the unique things is when you're working with all different industries, based on what's going on, there's always going to be cyclical behavior. There's going to be ups and downs. It's just the nature of how things go. But I haven't lived really in a time from a business perspective where just the whole world is experiencing mayhem.
Yeah.
And it's unprecedented. And on top of it, the media is constantly in our face about it, right? So I think the first thing to do, and most importantly, it's like everyone, I think, needs to take a deep breath and just know that they're not alone. Like if you're experiencing any type of financial burden from this, mental burden, I'm sure you can get into some of the physical stuff that's associated with it. You're not alone. When we talk about the financial burden in the last 2 weeks, this is crazy statistic. In the last 2 weeks, about 10 million people have filed for unemployment. Wow. Now, if you look at the previous record, it was in 1982. In a 1 week period, 700,000 people filed. So it puts in perspective 10 million to the previous record. So no one's alone here, and there's a lot of resources out there, and the United States government is stepping up in a really, really big way to kind of help with this time period and manage the gap here. So, you know what? It's okay. There's options out there. We're all going to get through this, and I think in some way or another, we're all in this together.
Totally agree with you, man. Now, obviously, you mentioned, we're all in this together, and we all have a ton of time on our hands right now. So you're talking about taking advantage of what the government has basically provided us. So that leads me into my next question. As far as the stimulus package, obviously it just came out last week, and there's a ton of different loans available for employees, ICs, small businesses, and whatnot. So can you just break down this stimulus package in simple terms so that the audience can, get a grasp of what they have the opportunity to take advantage of?
Yeah. So, I mean, in summary, if you're just hearing this high level, know that $2 trillion, think about how much friggin' money that is. $2 trillion has just been put in stimulus from the government. And when you factor in loans, we're talking about trillion bucks.
Wow.
So, the purpose of that statement is, one, if you're suffering in some capacity, it's likely there's something there for you. I think, with remaining somewhat high level, if we first talk about tax rebates. So they implemented tax rebates so that if you are making as an individual less than $75,000, you'll be getting $1,200 back in rebates. So the golden question is, well, when is this going to be measured? If you filed in 2019 already, it'll be measured for 2019. If you haven't filed in 2019, it'll go to your 2018 filing. So that's $75K, $1,200. Now you talk about household. If you have household income less than $150,000, you're going to get $2,400. Then what happens is it tiers down up to $198,000 and up to $100,000. So essentially, if you're an individual and you made less than $99,000, or your household income and you've made less than $198,000, you should be getting a direct deposit of some sort from the government to help out in this time period. In addition to that, $500 per child that you list as a dependent. So that's for starters,
Now,
right? And that's already been implemented.
Sorry to cut you off. How soon do you feel Americans can expect that part of the plan to come in?
Yeah, so that part of the plan was implemented around a week and a half ago, and they said it was going to be a priority for them. And as we discussed even before we started filming, when you're doing things with the government, usually it takes a little longer, right? But they dedicated to about like a 3 to 4 week time period. Okay. Now, one thing I've been doing is I've been searching on Twitter because I'm curious if anyone's posted anything about their experience. And some people have posted screenshots of their $1,200 being direct deposited. Oh, wow. So it is in process, and people are starting to see that. Okay, so let's get in. Do you want to go into some of the business loans?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so the first big program. Now, I was a former corporate banker, and I'm getting all my buddies just texting me and calling me nonstop because they are working around the clock because almost all of their employees are impacted by this, right? And they have to get all these applications in. So the applications are for small businesses, and to the SBA, SBA is the Small Business Administration, and what do they deem as small business? Well, they deem small business as employees less than 500 employees. Okay, so they have a program called the PPP. It's the Payment Protection Program, and essentially, what it's going to do is give 8 weeks of payroll cost and then any type of debt obligation relief. So up to $10 million per business, and it is going to essentially help with your payroll for an 8-week period of time and your debt obligations for that period of time. Willing to forgive all the money they give. So all the money they put out there, they will forgive it if you keep all your employees, and at least 75 given to you will actually go towards payroll. So this is a huge, huge relief for a lot of companies. I mean, you're talking about 2 months plus of almost all of your expenses that would, create a bleeding cash being cured. And then there's also an economic insurance loan plan as well that will give you up to $10,000 during this time, given the disaster that's happening. So what I would recommend is I could probably do an hour discussion on all the details and the different loan programs, but there is a site out there called SBA.gov, and those will give you all the breakdowns and, in fact, the applications too. Awesome. I mean, so you're a small business owner. Have you thought, is this something you've had to do?
Yeah, man. I actually, I'm looking for more than the $10,000, but I applied to the EIDL loan. Okay. Yeah, so I'm waiting to see on that. So I know they said that the loan officer would take about 2 to 4 weeks for them to actually get in touch with me, and then I guess we would discuss everything, and then if I get approved, pretty much they would send that money within 3 days. And I would discuss with him if I was looking to get more money as far as a bigger loan. That's the one that I believe would be at the 3.75, correct? Percent interest rate?
Correct. Yep, 3.75 fixed. Yep.
Gotcha.
And I think that's a good thing that, just high level, people are like, well, how are banks giving all this money? Well, there's something that if we're not in stimulus, it's called the SBA loan, and it's for a lot of startup companies. But the government is saying we really want to get people, active and starting businesses. So what we're going to do to banks is we're going to guarantee majority of these loans that fit in this portfolio. So if you lend to someone who's starting up and they fit our qualification and it goes belly up and they lose all their money, the government says we will pay for it. So therefore, the banks can feel good about actually lending it out.
Absolutely. Now, one quick question I have on that front. As far as the application process, obviously you fill it out online at SBA.gov, you mentioned. Like, are there any supporting documents that you know off the bat that these loan officers and the government's going to ask for from individuals? Because I feel a lot of people, they're like, okay, great, I want to apply for the loan, but then when they get asked for extra documentation, maybe they don't have that. So what should people get ready just in case they are asked, for, once the loan officer offers them the money or whatnot?
For sure. So if we real quickly, if we go back to the tax rebates, so those are going to just be direct deposited right into people's account based on the account number that they gave in previous filings. So they don't have to do anything. It'll be taken care of for them.
Okay.
When we talk about the business stuff, what you can expect is that I actually went through the economic insurance disaster loan application. I didn't complete it, but I went through it to see what you would have to submit. And the basic stuff, right? You're going to have to be able to, your employee identification number, which is essentially like a social security number for your business. You're going to have to present that. You'll probably have to present your W-9. They're going to want to know the type of gross revenue that you have had in the last year or two. They're going to want to know your gross income in the last year or two, and they're going to want to know your expenses so they can get an idea of really, what your business looks like and what type of loan makes sense. I'd have an idea of, obviously how many employees you have, the nature of your business, pretty much the basics, right? So I would say the equivalent is if you are an individual filling out like a job application, I would say, obviously, if you own a business, it's going to be like a job application for a business. So they're going to want to know the basics of your financials, what you do, and then obviously backing it up with organizational documents, showing your EIN and things like that.
Gotcha. Okay, that's good info right there. So, and I know you've also talked on your platform about the market. We're in a recession. The market has, the numbers have dropped tremendously. Record numbers. So what basically, for those that have lost money, like what's your outlook and projection on the market? Like, are we going to bounce back from this?
Yeah, I think, if you look at this before this all hit, like fundamentally, the market was in such good shape. Unemployed. This is what's crazy. Like if you look at September 2019, I'm doing this off my head, so if someone calls me out, I'll take it. But from what I remember, September 2019, unemployment rate was 3.5%. And I believe that was the lowest that unemployment had ever been since December 1969.
Wow.
So unemployment rate's a huge indicator of like what's happening in the economy. And everything was booming. The Dow and the S&P were at all-time highs. And from a fundamentals perspective, we were in really good shape. And then this virus comes in and takes the whole world off their course. So the good news is that we will, I think, before going into this, we were in a really good place. And I think once this is kind of taken care of and stimulus goes into effect and we start, some of the stuff that you could speak more to, but when we talk about like vaccines, ways to bring the curve down, and then going into next season, how we can limit exposure, I think once we get through that, then the next step is going to be making sure we repay the stimulus. But here's some advice I have, especially if you're looking at like your retirement vehicles, like your 401k, is that those vehicles are set to weather the storm. They're supposed to be weather. This stuff's going to happen. And a good example, if you look at like 1986 to 2016, so a 30-year period in the S&P 500, there was a ton of stuff that happened, right? You had there was Black Monday, 9/11, mortgage crisis, Desert Storm, so many ups and downs. And through that, the S&P still gained on average about 10%. So the point is that if you don't look at your 401ks, it's not even worth it. You'll weather this storm. You'll get through it. What I'd recommend is meet with your financial advisor at least quarterly or annually to make sure allocations make sense for your risk tolerance. But lastly, what I'll say is if you are not learning something right now about your financial behaviors or where you are or your profile, you're totally doing yourself a disservice. This is such a good time to say, I don't have a cash fund ready. I have too much money. My risk allocation isn't aligned. My debt is not properly aligned. I need to manage my discretionary expenses better. I mean, if you can't take this time while we're quarantined and at home to really, look at your financial profile and say, this is what I need to be doing better, I just think you're doing yourself a disservice.
Absolutely, man. Great advice. So like, I feel like there's also maybe a portion of the population out there that, maybe want to get into stocks right now. Is that something that you would advise? Like, let's say people lost a ton of money, they want to recoup it. They're looking for different investments to,
Hmm.
maybe take advantage from, even though it's a negative time overall. Like, is that something that you would advise people to do?
Yeah, I mean, so I always bring it back to like what I'm doing. So rather than like let people say, "Here's my advice, take it, run with it," I'll tell you what I'm doing, and then if you think it makes sense for yourself, adjust accordingly. But all my retirement vehicles, I don't plan on touching them until 59 and a half plus, based on some of the repayment fees and stuff like that. So that'll weather the storm. I've allocated appropriately for this. I'm not worried about it. I do have some like day trading and short term investments. That stuff I'm definitely actively watching, but there is a rule of thumb when it comes to day trading and short term trading, and it's the process of like catching a falling sword or falling knife. Like you catch it the right way, yeah, you can be on the Iron Throne, but it's more likely than not you're going to hurt yourself in the process of trying to catch a falling sword.
Yeah.
So I think that a lot of analysts out there have said we've already hit rock bottom, and that the stimulus has put us in a position that we won't see it getting worse. I think that right now it's saying United States, like pinnacle deaths will be about April 16th. So if you look at almost every expert to date, no one's been right. So I think you have to look at what your risk profile is and determine if it makes sense to get involved in what is really considered a risky territory now. But that being said, if you look at a lot of the stocks and if you look at indexes or even physical commodities like oil, things are really trading at the lowest point they've traded at in a long, long time. So there's two arguments here. One, do you want to catch a falling sword and cut yourself? Two, things are discounted severely. And if you believe there will be a quick recovery and you believe in, the government's process of getting things back in order, you can make quick returns.
Wow. It's a big risk, but maybe worth it. I know you had mentioned on your platform
For sure.
didn't some guy make like $2 billion or something like that real quick?
Crazy.
What was the
Yeah,
story
Bill.
on that?
So Bill Ackman, this guy, I mean, talk about like no one at the top has gotten this right and
Wow.
predicted it correctly. But this guy saw it coming from a mile away. He was doing research in February. He's a hedge fund manager, and he noticed that patterns weren't right. So what happened is he started. It's a process of selling. I'm not going to get into the technical details of it, but essentially he was in high level. He was betting against the market. So based on his positions and credit default swaps and things
Yeah.
like that, he was betting that things would turn for the worst. And not only was he betting that it would turn for the worst, but he was vocally going on the record, tweeting at the president early March, you need to shut this country down. And he was pretty much predicting what has already happened. And as a result of that, his hedge fund profited $2.6 billion in net profit, predicting what would happen. So he was one of the few guys that really saw the writing on the wall.
Good
and
for
his
him. Good for him.
done well for himself.
Too
right?
bad the government didn't listen to him
Crazy.
when he
Yeah,
predicted
right.
that. So
You're not
besides,
kidding.
yeah, no, for sure. So besides stocks, like, would you recommend any, or maybe you could talk about anything that you're doing besides stocks as far as taking advantage and investing during this difficult time? Would there be anything else besides stocks?
Yes, I think everyone, I have a tutorial coming out on this because I think everyone thinks the stock market, I need to buy an ownership claim of a business. But there's so many other things you could do that actually don't have any type of correlation to the market. So let's talk about a few of them. So first one, real estate. I think it's self-explanatory, but you can invest in real estate, residential or commercial. The issue with that is the hurdle to overcome. It requires a lot of capital, right? So then what could you do? There's something called REITs, REIT, Real Estate Investment Trust. And essentially they're organizations that are built to just only buy income producing property. So that they buy and manage income producing property. They very strategically buy it, and they'll usually have like a niche. So they'll only own hospitals, or they'll only own shopping centers, or only residential. And you could go on the market through a brokerage firm and actually buy into a REIT that's kind of like a stock. So it's another way of investing, but it's tied to real estate, not necessarily the market. But there's a bunch of stuff. So another one's an emergency fund, like a savings account. Obviously, low interest rate, but it helps you with your cash position. It's not tied to the market. You could do bonds. So what a bond is it's essentially like it's a loan. It's a reverse loan. So if I have $500, I would buy, let's say, a treasury bond. Essentially, I'm taking my $500, I'm lending it to the government, and they're paying me interest. That's how I'm getting paid. So it's another investment alternative that really is the actual stock market. And then the last one, I think, for this conversation worth bringing up would be physical commodities. So that's the one everyone talks. It's funny. At 3 a.m, you can't sleep. You turn on the TV, and they got all these like gold and silver commercials now, right? Because it's a hot thing people are talking about. Because there's a lot of arguments to this, but in general, what they'll say is that as as gold and the market work inversely, and they say that while the market's tanking, the value of commodities like gold, silver, aluminum will increase. So you can actually invest in those. Or even, one I'm looking at closely that I've actually, bring it back to the Bachelor. I won't say one of the producers, executive producers we certainly know. We've been talking a lot about getting in at crude oil. Crude oil right now is at all 20-year all-time lows. All stuff you can buy on the market. So you can also invest in physical commodities too.
Wow. Okay, those are three great examples. Now I want to take you back, Jay. So, you at 18 years old, obviously, you've had a great career so far. What would you tell yourself if you could go back in a time warp, tell yourself something at 18 that you know now? Like, what would you go back and tell your younger self knowing what you know now?
That's a good question. I think I could think of a lot of things like, oh, go invest in this or go pick the right, lottery numbers. But like realistically,
predict 2020 maybe.
I think predict 2020. Bill Ackman, make $2 billion off it. I think something that's like relatable too is I think that my biggest issue is I cared, especially at a young age, I cared way too much about what people thought of me, and I felt as though that insecurity led to me spending too much money on just bullshit. Too much, things that it was more of a flex than actually like, what is the meaning of it? Like, go to the bar and put my credit card down and buy a bunch of people, drinks and stuff, or, spend money on material things that just don't make sense, a watch or shoes, just to like think I'm look cool. And I think the older I got, the more I realized I wasn't doing that for myself. I was doing it for other people and just filling a void and insecurity and discretionary expenses like that. Like anybody that doesn't have a cash emergency fund, there's a lot of factors, but I'm sure if you go and analyze your discretionary spending, what are you spending at restaurants, in bars, and online for retail purchases and more wants than needs, you quickly realize you're just burying cash. Yeah. And that's probably like my 18 to like 24, 25-year-old self did way too much of that and spending money on booze, I would say.
Same. No, man, I'm the same. I feel like, I guess we just get wiser with age and we just start spending way more wisely. So if we could just go back and shake ourselves a little bit and just really drill into our heads that, this isn't the way to go, plan for your future, think more long-term, I think that would be, but hey, that comes with experience. So for all you young people out there, listen to Jason. So now I want to get your take on this, man. I've seen, obviously we have a lot of time to go on social media nowadays. And I saw on IG the other day a post that said, if you don't come out of this quarantine with 1, a new skill, 2, a new side hustle, or 3, new knowledge, you never lacked time, you lacked discipline. What are your thoughts on that, man? Because I think that's pretty powerful.
So I don't know who said that, but I could not agree more with that, right?
Yeah.
I mean, like every day, one of the things I try and do, and I'm sure within your physical life and in your routine as a doctor, I try and wake up better than the day before. And the better doesn't mean, I'm always succeeding and I'm always moving the chains forward. It also means that I'm learning from the times that I fall on my face.
Absolutely.
And in this like scenario, if you don't the ability to be like a little bit self-aware and take the time to analyze yourself and where you're at and what's next, I just don't know when there's a better time to do it. And let's bring it back to business for a second. I think what's interesting is if you look in 2002, 2003, which is a huge recession that we had, some of the largest companies were founded and created in that year. Like you look at like Wayfair, GoPro, Tesla, Sonos. That was all 2002, 2003. Then look at our next recession. That was the mortgage crisis, 2008, 2009. Huge companies. Uber was created, Airbnb, Series XM, Rent the Runway. So this is the time, I think, to like kind of look in the mirror, see what you could be doing better, and then also just like channel that creative energy however you can, and look at where there are problems in the world today and try and bridge solutions, because you just never know what could come from it. So like whoever said that, I endorse the hell out of it.
Absolutely. And yeah, I feel like we have all this time. It's not the time now to just, I mean, granted, you need some, to clear your headspace a little bit and watch Netflix every now and then, but that's not an all day thing. You want to get better, like you said, mentally, spiritually, physically. You just want to keep moving forward. And like you said, if you make a mistake or you have a bad day, I think that's normal. You know what I mean? But pick it up the next day. Don't be down for too long. And I totally agree with you, man. That's a very powerful post.
Quick question for you, like just as far as like fitness goes, during this time period, what are you suggesting for people? And like kind of the same question back at you, like what are you posing for people to come out of this, physically ahead instead of physically behind?
Yeah, I mean, obviously we're lacking the gym. That's hurt me. I think it's hurt everybody. The fact that we can't go to the gym and lift the heavier weights and whatnot. Depending on our goal or whatnot. So obviously we're all converting now to home workouts and maybe smaller weights, but I think if you push your body, I mean, there's different ways that you could push your body, whether it's more reps, more sets, more difficult exercises, things like that. I mean, you could really tax your body physically. Obviously, then there's the nutrition aspect. Everybody's trying to maintain. I just saw a buddy of ours that he was on The Bachelor. I'm not going to mention his name, but he just his goal is he doesn't want to get fat. So, I think that all goes into, you got to stay active, 30 minutes to an hour minimum. You could walk outside, obviously maintain the social distancing guidelines, but you could get your cardio up with that, or with the type of workouts that you do, maybe do some HIIT training in your house or your apartment. But then also obviously the food comes big, take out all the processed foods when you do go shopping, which, we're all doing now. We're hoarding all this food. We're, stocking up on groceries. Make sure that the foods that you do have in your house aren't junk. No processed foods, none of the foods in boxes with the high sugar and whatnot, the high sugar content, because that's all, with the lack of movement. If we're sitting on our couch all day, not being productive, and we're just stuffing our face with all this processed foods and junk, it's clearly gonna show up on our midsection and everywhere else on our body. So, you just want to have a good game plan when it comes to not only the physical, but then also what you put in your body nutritionally. So that would be my, main thing. And just, obviously the whole mental aspect is huge. So, wake up, thank God that, you live with a sense of gratitude every single day for what you have. We're surviving this. We're all in this together. And just stay motivated, and of course, if you have to talk to others, you're not alone in this. Like you said, talk to your family. I mean, I know I can't visit my parents nowadays. I'm trying to stay away from them as much as possible because I don't want to infect them potentially. But, talk to them on FaceTime, reach out to other friends or family members that you haven't talked to in a while. I think that, is going to really keep your spirits up. So, I would suggest that mentally, physically, and nutritionally. I think that's the way you could, stay ahead of the curve.
Amazing.
Hypothetical, man. Let me ask you this. So, I know a lot of I know one of my thoughts when this all was going down was like, damn, what are the people that are like living paycheck to paycheck going to do? It's like you mentioned the government, is overwhelmed right now with all these people filing for unemployment, all these people, applying for these loans. It's like it might take a couple weeks, and some people don't have that amount of time. Like they've just been laid off of work. So now for a person that's living paycheck to paycheck in this country, that hasn't been able to put money away, they have credit card debt, which I feel is a lot of people that have these little things that are holding them back from getting ahead financially. And then to dump this avalanche on top of them, must be really, really tough. So you as a financial advisor, how would you coach this person? Like, what would be your, all right, Susie Q, John Q, whatever your name is, like, let's set up a game plan for you. What would you say, like, surface level, like, what would be the first couple things you would do just to kind of ease their fears and get them ahead?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's like the X's and O's, right? And it's probably the same in your world when people are coming in and asking for training and ideas, kind of like what I just asked. And I think the thing is that like everyone kind of has to have really a customized solution based on their behaviors and what they're looking to achieve and things like that. Yeah. So let's just break it down to like, let's just say, in summary, of someone who's living paycheck to paycheck and they're struggling during this time. So the two things I would say is that the things that we can really control, we can work on areas of increasing the income that are coming in, and then we can decrease our total expenses. Now, for the purpose of this conversation, let's say that the top line is staying the same. So top line is all your income coming in. The first thing we got to do is you have to manage your first discretionary expenses, your variable expenses, things that you can go without. And you got to take a top line, understand in a budget what is coming in on a weekly, biweekly, or monthly basis after taxes. And then chart out all your fixed expenses. So every expense that you can't change, so your rent, your car payment, things that are locked in, and then your discretionary expenses. First thing, whack your discretionary expenses. Take them out. Think about your subscriptions. Think about things that are reoccurring that you're paying for that you're not using, and really identify where your money is going. The second thing I would tell that person to do is when we get back to the fixed expenses, when we're talking about rent, and now we're talking about car payment and utilities and cable, this has never been a better time to negotiate. Like, you need to figure out, one, if those fixed expenses are too great for your income. And if they are, you need to reduce and limit your needs. And then if they're not, this is the time to be calling your landlord and saying, listen, how long have I paid my bills for? How many months have I done it? I need some help in this time frame. I have buddies that live in New York City places. I told them, get on the phone right now with your landlord. And their landlord's like, of course, for this, you've been such a good tenant. For the summer, 50% off everything. So this is the time to negotiate. This is the time to eliminate a lot of those discretionary expenses, manage your fixed expenses, and understand what's coming in at the top and where that money is going. And then the last 100%. Thing I'll hit on this is when you stack rank your debt. If you have debt, you need to stack rank what the debt amount is. It's just a few phone calls, how much it is, and the percentage you're paying. And I can guarantee you, if you have credit card debt, the percentage that you're paying is going to be almost 3 or 4 times all your other debt. And getting out of debt burden when you're stuck with credit card debt is almost impossible. So there's so many ways that you can slowly get rid of that credit card debt, but it all is going to start with looking at your cash flow, income coming in, minus your fixed expenses, minus your discretionary expenses, figuring out what cash is left over that and how you can take that credit card debt out. And there's a lot of strategies and methods to do it, but make it a priority because credit card debt is really a tough one to get out of if you don't address it.
Yeah, they want to keep you in debt. That's like the whole point of the credit cards, I imagine. So I loved what you said, man. Like, everybody out there, like, you need to make a budget. Like, Rachel and I do it all the time. Like, we put our, we write out the list of all our expenses coming out, and those subscriptions could be sneaky. You know what I mean? Like, you signed up for
Very
3 months
sneaky.
ago and you don't realize, if you don't keep tabs on your bank account, they're just taking out money every single month. And that's maybe something that you don't really need right now in today's world. So you could get rid of a lot of those things. And I love what you said about make the phone calls to your landlords, your credit card companies, your banks, because if you don't ask, the answer is always no. But there's so many things that companies are offering nowadays. Landlords are offering. Like, I heard, I don't know if you mentioned this, but some guy in New York, he was a landlord. He basically gave all of April free for his tenants, which was amazing, I thought.
I love it.
And the entire condo. So if you don't ask, you never know, because just try it out and see, because a lot of people are setting up programs right now to assist everybody in need. So great advice, Jay.
And one other thing, Brian, just while you talked about it, I'm thinking of it. You have to look at your behaviors. So I addressed when I was younger, what are things I was doing? I was spending too much at a bar. So then, therefore, say, I'm only going to go out one night a week at that time. But figure out what it is where you're spending your money. Is it because you're going to the mall? Is it because, you are swiping up? Is it because you're getting emails from companies that are sending sales? Like, figure out what it is that triggers that spending that's unnecessary and eliminate that. Unsubscribe from the emails, unfollow accounts that that are strictly business accounts and you're spending money where you shouldn't, things like that. Like, figure out what your behaviors are so that you can kind of help address it.
100%. All right, man. So I want to switch gears. Couples. There's obviously a lot of couples out there that sometimes have, I feel like, a difficult time talking about finances. That's a very tricky subject. Usually when you first start dating somebody, you don't really talk about that subject too much. But as you get more serious, I know, you're in a serious relationship, I'm married. So like finances is a topic that I feel should be talked about more amongst people in relationships, couples, married couples, whatnot. So what would you say in times like these, how important is it for the two people in a relationship to be open and honest with each other, as far as finance is concerned, so that, you could pretty much win financially in the end?
Yeah, I think it is like it should be a monster top priority. And the reason is because if you look at divorce rates, like one of the number of leading indicators that lead to divorce is mismanagement of finances and uncertainty as to where you kind of lie within that. I mean, once you get married, you are, I am not taking the emotion out of this and I am not trying to, but once you're married, you're in obviously a life commitment and the list goes on. But if you look at the business side of it, you're in like a contract together. Yeah. You're now partners. And I think it's so important to be on the same page and understand what each other's making, what makes sense for spending, what doesn't make sense. And just having a common understanding as to what principles that your relationship is going to be managed under as far as the money aspect comes, because you just don't want surprises. You want to be able to achieve the same things out of life, like when you're going to retire, how you're going to pay for your kids' education and things like that. So those are conversations I think that, it's not that you should have them, it's that you must have them. Like, you must have them. Yeah. And, everyone will have a customized plan as to whether they have their own separate accounts or joint accounts, but having ideas of what is acceptable and what's unacceptable, I think just guiding principles is really, really important in a relationship.
100%, man. All right. So finally, on a personal note, we've had all this time on our hands, I'm sure. Did you guys throw a party for your dogs the other day?
We just set up our own little personal party.
That's amazing, man. Hey, man, we're all losing it in some way, but I'm sure you guys have had like some amazing combos. Like, I've had some great combos, just talking about life in general with Rachel during our quarantine time. So I just want to know, like, I'm sure you guys have spoken about the future. Like, what's next for you and Caitlin moving forward? Like, hopefully, we get out of this and, everybody's safe and sound. Like, what's your future outlook for you two?
Yeah, so it's so funny. The other day I was upstairs and Caitlin did a post, and she said in the post was, we would make really cute quarantine babies. And so I'm like, what are we doing? Are we doing babies before engagement? What's going on here? And she's laughing and stuff. So it's, I think what's interesting is when you're in this world and you get engaged after a short period of time, for some reason, it just must be instilled that people just like lock you to those expectations, right? Yeah. And at the end of the day is you have to live the life that you imagine and the way you want to do it. And Caitlin and I have been doing that since day one. We dated long distance for about 6-7 months, and then we chose to us what's our next step. And our next step was moving in together. And it's been such an amazing experience living together in Nashville. We're working on the home. I think the idea here is we're going to flip this through and look for our next spot. We rescued 2 dogs, and like our story has just been, it's been an amazing one. And, that's why I went down. I was like, I think I want our next step to be engagement, not kids yet. And she's like, no, we're on the same page. Definitely let's get engaged first.
If there's a quarantine baby, maybe that'll speed up the engagement. Maybe that's what she's thinking.
That's a little bit.
That's her plan.
But let's say we're certainly having those conversations, and it's an exciting time. And I'm well aware of the cuts and styles that Caitlin would want.
Yeah. Well, I'm really happy for you, man. I'm glad you found love. And if there's one thing that I've learned coming out of this Bachelor franchise, it's go at your own pace. It's your own journey.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like, just it's you and her. Like all the outside
Exactly.
noise, even if it's fans, family, wherever the friends, wherever the all the input is coming in from. At the end of the day, it's your decision. So just stick with that, and it seems like you're doing that. So kudos to you guys.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we're on the same page, and we both feel really good about where we are and what's next.
Absolutely. All right, man. So I want to end this off with a little what I like to call rapid fire, if you wouldn't mind.
Okay.
So it's a quick little eight question rapid fire. So here we go.
This is so funny because real quick, because you're coming on my YouTube, and we end it every single episode because it's called Restart with Restart Rapid Fire. So I love it. Let's do it.
Okay. All right. I'm already getting a little nervous for yours. All right. Let's see. All right. Here we go, buddy. Pay for a big wedding or down payment on a house?
I am all about down payment on a house.
Okay.
It's one night. It's one party. Come on.
Exactly. So, all right. Percentage of paycheck to put in savings every period. Your suggestion.
Everyone needs to do it what they need to do, but I say a minimum of 15%. That should be a benchmark.
Minimum for 50%. Okay. So let's say on a property, buy or rent.
Again, it comes down to each person, but if you're renting, you're essentially, you're throwing money away. The only thing, you're paying someone's mortgage. The only thing is you're limiting your liability. So your exposure to other expenses is very limited. So I'm a proponent of owning over renting, but I do understand certain circumstances where it makes sense to rent.
Yeah, that's a little deeper question. All right, so let's see. Biggest pet peeve about your significant other in general or specific to this quarantine period?
Oh, that's a really, really good question. Okay, here's my biggest pet peeve. Is Caitlin has something called misophonia. And misophonia is apparently, I didn't come across this in my years until I brought into Caitlin, but apparently it's like a high sensitivity to noise and to like people like chewing and stuff like that. So like if I'm like, I'll be having soup or my coffee and doing it the right way, like with my mouth closed, but let's say it's something crunchy to make these like super loud noises. It like drives her crazy.
Why is she honing in? What? Why is she honing in on all these noises? Like she should be keeping busy.
That's what I'm saying. Like, what are you talking about? So I have noticed during quarantine, I didn't really notice it before, is that her misophonia is really weird and her really intense, and her like sensitivity to noise is pretty severe. So that's one thing I'm like, all right, let's both work on this, right?
She's got those go-go gadget ears. She hears everything.
Yeah, she does. She'll be a hell of a mother. Kids will get away with nothing.
Well, there you go. All right, let's see. Favorite quarantine snack?
Favorite? Oh, man. This is absolutely my guilty pleasure right now. And
I've definitely indulged myself.
I'm done. I'm like almost done buying it, but Cheez-Its. Like I was like at the Cheez-Its. I was at the grocery store, got a pack of Cheez-Its, and then like I couldn't stop eating them. And then the next time I went, I got Cheez-Its again, and I don't know what it is. I'm obsessed with Cheez-Its right now. I got to stop it. How about what's yours?
I was actually gonna do a little shout out to them, dude. I'm telling you, you need to get this. It's actually, I always like to talk about a healthy substitute. Like right now, we're indoors a lot. We're quarantined. We're going to probably up the calories a little bit, right? So what's the best option that we could have? So if it's peanut butter, what could we, maybe almond butter is the healthier substitute, whatnot. So what I found is this company called G Butter. I know they sell it at GNC. I don't know if like your average supermarket, I'm sure Whole Foods has it, but it's like a high protein peanut butter. Some are almonds, some are like cashew butters, but loaded with CLA, which helps you burn fat. It's keto friendly, vegan, things like that. So it's a healthier spread, that I could put on top of, maybe some Ezekiel toast. So, I had almond milk with Ezekiel toast and G butter on top. So that's like my healthy snack. So you get that like sweet tooth out of the way, that you fill in that need. But at the same time, at least you can rest easy knowing, hey, all right, I'm trying the best that I can, trying to be as healthy as possible. So G Butter, check that out. Tons of flavors. Cookies and cream, cookie dough, birthday cake. I mean, there's a ton. All right. First thing or activity you're going to do when you come out of quarantine?
First activity I'm doing?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm like me. So Caitlin and I are constantly go, go, go. And we are always on a plane, always traveling somewhere. I just need to go somewhere. Like, I don't care where I go. I want to get on a plane somewhere where the weather's nice and just like
R&R.
Go see a city and just like relax and hang out and go see friends. I'm like, I am more like Rachel in the fact, like you said, I'm very, I'm very, I got to get out. I got to interact with people. I'm very extroverted. Caitlin's like loving this. She's like, I love being at home, just hanging. This is great.
All day, every day.
Balance,
Absolutely. All right. So who's the first person you're going to go see when you come out of quarantine?
First person, I have one of my best buddies from New York who just moved to Chicago. I just moved. Shame on me. He's been there for like 8 months, and I've been saying over and over, I'm coming to visit. I'm coming to visit. Well, I finally peeled off like 5 days to spend in Chicago, and I was supposed to leave on March 18th. And of course, quarantine set in. So I'm missing my best boys and my best buddy Hawk in Chicago. I'm going to go spend some time with him.
I hear you, man. I hear you. All right, and last one. I know you're a huge Buffalo Bills fan.
Oh, yeah.
Best or greatest Buffalo Bill of all time?
Wow. Greatest Buffalo Bill of all time. I'm going to say from a coaching perspective, his name is Marv Levy, and I got to go with quarterback Jim Kelly. I mean, this guy has overcome such adversity personally in his life with his child who passed. He's just a fighter. He won't take no for an answer. With limited talent, he brought the Bills to 4 Super Bowls. And on top of that, he's really stayed true to the community of Buffalo and gives back countlessly, nonstop, the whole Kelly family. So he's a Hall of Famer in Buffalo, in the NFL, and the guy is just an absolute legend.
100%, man. I know his story really well. Such an inspiration. Just as a side note I'm from Miami, so of course, unfortunately, I'm a Dolphins fan. So I remember those years, man. You, Kelly, Thurman Thomas, Andre Reed, James Lofton, they would break my heart every single year. Like, they just dominated division, kind of like the Patriots are doing for the last 18 now or 20. So, man, those days, you guys pretty much prevented Marino from getting a Super Bowl, I feel. So I actually went to that, 1992. We played you at home. The AFC Championship game, I was like, this is it. I mean, we're at home. We got the Bills where we want them. We were playing so well, and you guys just came in and ruined our whole year. So kudos to the Bills, man.
But the thing is, here's 2 good things. One story I'll never forget is when Jimmy Johnson took down the Bills and they beat the Bills in the playoffs, and he had Flutie Flakes and he threw them all over the locker room celebrating when Miami beat us. And the second one, the good news for the Dolphins and for the Bills, it is over.
Yes.
Tom Brady is no longer in the division, so it's a fight to the top.
I was always telling myself, I was like, we're not going to ever win this division or go anywhere until either Bill Belichick or Tom Brady are out of the division because it's just pointless. Yeah.
Caitlin just walked in. She says hi.
Oh, tell her I said hello. Cameo appearance. All right, buddy. So just to finish off, I want you to talk about, a little bit more about your platform. I know about the Restart Reset podcast, your YouTube channel. So talk about that. Let everybody know your social handles, anything else you want to promote out there that you're doing, any projects. Go ahead. You have the floor.
Appreciate that. Yeah. So Restart, what the whole idea is we're doing financial tutorials. We're breaking down some of the craziness of the news so that people can understand how it relates to them. And we're also doing these Restart Real Talks where we're talking to people with all different professions and career paths so that as we're trying to navigate our lives, we can learn from those who have done it and not let maybe history repeat itself or lessons they learned impede us personally as we try and go across our path. So if you can find Restart at Restart_reset on Instagram. And then we have the YouTube channel where the interviews and tutorials will be found, and that is the Restart channel by Jason Tartick. So that's the Restart project, which has been a lot of fun. And then as far as Twitter goes and Instagram, my handles are Jason_Tartick. And, what you could find on there is a lot of lifestyle stuff with Caitlin and I, some business stuff. And then in addition, I've always been interested in investing in small businesses and things like that. So one product that I actually have to send your way that I have an investment in is it's called Happy Snaps. And what they are these oat crisps. They're whole grain, non-GMO, dairy-free. And in 20 oat crisps, there's 3 grams of protein, 2 grams of sugar, 120 calories. They come in cocoa, honey, and berry. And the idea is to really, again, supplement the snack and sweet tooth with something that is, reliable, nutritionist. Nutritionist comes from the brand Evoke, which has muesli that's out in every Kroger,
Nice.
Whole Foods, etc.
Sounds like a next quarantine snack.
Yeah, I'll send some your way. But
Absolutely.
so that's my story, and I really appreciate you having me on, and I look forward to having you on a Real Talk with Rita.
Absolutely. Appreciate the invite, man. So there you have it, guys. Jason Tartick, such great information, great financial advice. Follow him on all his handles he just mentioned. And just keep on the lookout for him because he's doing big things. And shout out to his lovely girlfriend, Caitlin. So thank you so much for coming on, my man. Appreciate it. And until next time.
Until next time. And once this is all said and done, we should get a little double date going.
Absolutely. We got to head up to Nashville. I was actually up there for the draft, believe it or not, last year.
Oh, cool.
Which is going to look a little bit different this year. But love the city, man. Love to head out there and, definitely double, like you said. So it'd be awesome.
Good stuff, man. Well, stay safe, stay healthy, and thanks again for having me.
Absolutely. Take care, buddy. Talk soon.
All right. Have a good one.